So then I invite Mariana Zvaric, who is the head of the Department of the Public Relations of Ternopil city. Let us greet her because she's in the finals. Maybe she will win today. Olena Gunko, who's the Deputy Director on Open Data from the Communal Enterprise, and the head and the Executive Director of Transparency International Ukraine. Hello, Andrei Borovik. Hello, Andrei, and Olena, and Mariana. So first maybe you noticed, maybe you're not, we had those Rubik's cubes here. Did you take them home? Of course you did. There is a very interesting parallel and association. I can see the cities which are saying, we are showing the data. We've got everything at the website, take whatever you want. But here we can see the cities are saying, we have the data which brought us to this effect, according to each data set. So I'd like to wish each city, because this is the last panel, for you not to have the aim to publish the data sets, but the aim should be to improve the life of the citizens. So I'm giving the floor to Miss Mariana first, and we have the gender equality. Mariana, would you please tell us, Ternopil city, we can see how rapidly you are developing in the digital transformation. I know that you were one of the first one to implement the fine card, the card of the city resident. Would you tell us about more about the open data in the communal sphere? How did they bring the profits to the city? Maybe the social gains. Hello, everyone. I would like to repeat the words of Victor Lyakh, the previous moderator, who said that people are living in the communities. People are not living in the whole country problems, they're living in the communities, and first of all they're interested in what they see around themselves, about their surroundings. They will be interested when this or that road is repaired, when this or that entrance of the house is repaired, or the public transport. What they face first of all, the city is facing, and each of us is facing. I won't tell you about the data which we are publishing, as Stanislav is saying. I will tell you what we are doing with the data and where we have the requests from. As my department is dealing with public relations, we mostly speak to the public and we're listening what the residents want to hear from us, what they want to get to know from us. First of all, though it may seem trivial, this was the request for the repairment in the city. Would you confess, if you live in the multi-storied building, how often do you know when the roof was repaired? And if they repaired the roof, were you at home? And do you know this info? There was an interesting request and application in the social network. Oh, you are distributing the money not in an equal principle. You are sometimes allocating money for the square and for the park, but you haven't done anything at our building. When we opened all the data, all the information, and created the service according to this data where the person could find everything which was done in his or her building, people did not mention such questions anymore, because it turned out that the repairment of the territory around the house is almost the same as the repairment of the roof, but the roof repairment will be estimated only by the people who live at the last floor, because they don't have any problems for the roof, but the money was allocated for both buildings. In fact, those were one of the first cases when the residents wanted to create a service, not just to publish the data, and then those questions just vanished. During the last year we didn't have a single question about any repairments and maintenance works. This is what every city needs, and I'm sure that every city has requests about these questions. The next interesting point is the register of the communal property. Very often we have the communal property which is given in for rent for a very symbolic payment, 1 hryvnia, but mostly NGOs get that. Do you know which NGO got a communal property? Do you know what property is communal communal. In fact, even the entrepreneurs don't know it. When we opened this service, we created the map of the communal properties where people can get to know who got the communal property, how much he or she paid to the budget, and can we give this property for rent and to use it on our own. A very elementary case going on with the needs of communal property. When we speak about the public budget, people are coming and saying, we have a cool idea, but we don't know how to implement it. We are saying, please, this is the service, find the info and use it. You've got a communal property and you've got the info. Those are two simple examples which every city has. And the third one is a very short one, e-ticket. Ternopil was one of the first to implement e-ticket in the public transport. You can use any type of the public transport, short buses, trolley buses, communal buses. What did we get in response? Some of the categories with discounts and personification of all of the people who use public transport. According to the data which we used out of the calculations, we get a very simple result. We know who, when and how is going. According to this data, in a year and a half, we totally updated the transport network of the city. We updated the transport model of the city. And when we did it and gave it for the public hearing and discussion, the viewers were thousands. Do you know how many comments there were? Only 20 of them. It means that open data allow us to manage the city efficiently. It was not the end. We know the flows of the passengers, we know what needs to be changed in the transport network, and we know one more practical thing, that the e-ticket and the e-card can be used not only in the public transport. Besides that, the school children are using those cards when they pay for the lunches. The lunches they're getting at schools. And first of all, the people who get those lunches for free. What does it give us? For the budget of the city, it's just the saving of the money, because we are not paying the average price for the lunch, but we have a certain sum of money paid from the budget, what the child ate, and the price what the entrepreneur got as a return on from the budget. It is the honesty and the transparency and openness in front of the community. This is the question, when we just publish it or we make it as an open service for open data. Well, it's really impressive. The experience of Ternopil, if I'm not mistaken, it was about a year or two ago when maybe we saw online how you had a huge strike of short bus drivers. They didn't want to go, and then when you began to implement the card of the city resident. Yes, since the beginning of 2018, the whole public transport has the e-tickets, all of the types, without any exclusions. And we knew that there will be certain oppression, because before that, all the short buses and communal transport took the reimbursement for the free transportation of the people with discounts with an average price. They'll calculate it. Today we had 10, tomorrow we had 20 of those people who had the free ride. Give us the sum. But when we had the precise validation of the cards, that we had a huge step forward, because this was the first time when all of the transport rides were free for some of the categories, even if those are private short buses, because this is the substantial sum for the reimbursement. Now we have the free rides for school children in all of the communal types of transport, because we have enough of money to reimburse those expenses, and it equals efficiency. Open data is efficiency in the managerial processes. And what about your plans, the plans for the next year? Now we are testing the function which I mentioned, when we pay for the lunches by school children in all of the educational institutions. We plan to use those data sets, and though it may seem trivial, our tactical plan is the request of the society which roads are blocked while we are conducting different events. For the drivers, it's rather convenient, because not everybody can follow the news when this or that street is blocked. But as the local self-governance they are accumulating the info, we would like to create the calendar of the events which will make you aware beforehand about this or that street blocked, first of all for the drivers, for bicyclists, cyclists and the pedestrians. Thank you.
Now the Olena Honko, the person, the phenomenal person, a legend in open data for Lviv, and as far as I remember, Lviv was the first city to enter the International Charter on Open Data. You created the first portal, you're the first city to receive the Open Data City Awards. The first city bot project was created there. Yes. As far as I remember, we can already talking about it for more than half an hour, and we don't have enough of time. But quite recently, Olena has participated in the experience exchange to the US. She has been studying there, and she has shown what Ukraine has gained, and she was studying in the municipality of San Diego. Can you please tell us in more details about the experience of the cities in the US? And maybe you can tell us whether they know and hear about the Ukrainian achievements over the pond. Thank you. Thank you. There was a unique opportunity, and there was a unique opportunity to have this in place, to have this training in place, because that was one of the important issues for me to learn about the experiences in these spheres. I've had a couple of revelations that I have seen there. First of all, on approach, on publishing the data and the policies that have been developed, and here. All of our previous forums, all of our previous internal meetings were always discussing the standards, the lists, and we are discussing it, we're calculating all of it. But if we take a look at the policies on the open data in the United States of America, on the local level or on the governmental level, you will not see any of the blacklist there. There's mostly kind of the framework policies, and the framework values that are going to identify the overall direction of the activities. For all of the vertical and horizontal activity, the structures is not really easy ones. We do believe that we have a lot of institutions. We have a complex vertical, but it's even more complicated than that. And an interesting illustration to that is the number of the portals of the open data that they have. They have the national portal, they have the portal for every state, they have a portal for every district in the state, and the portals of the cities. We do not have a lot of that, but they have a lot of those already present, because first of all, the scale of the country and overall the number of all of the districts for the portals for the districts. But they always have the overall framework policies. Those are the values that everyone is using and working in the framework of these values. I have asked them, what do you do if the data owner do not publish the open data? So we asked them, what do you do? Then we go to another owner. As first of all, their inside motivation for every data owner to publish the information, and it's all connected that they all to the moment that they all use this data. So all of the data owners, they use their data first of all. They analyze those data. They use it. They publish. The results of the analytical approach, but they're using and processing the data to make some of the decisions in place, and they're looking for the most optimal solution for every specific problem, but they're all connected to this inside operational processes that they face every day, and the problems that we face every day in our cities. So it's not that much important for them. It's not a self-aim to publish for the publish sake. They really need for sake. They need to understand how they should use it and how they should keep on moving in the further on directions, in the further on spheres. I've had an honor to meet this person for the chief data officer, the CDO, and we're all trying to be there to meet these people, and we're all discussing all of these moments. We're trying to introduce that for all of us at a different level, but I met the CDO of San Diego City. This department is a part of the overall department that deals with the KPIs of the development of the city, and they cannot do that. They cannot perform their main functions without data. There are the key productivity indicators. Like, it's not only providing the high quality of welfare and high quality of life in the city. What it is, it has to be a measurable indicator. It's not just the city would like to do that, but every specific step, every specific branch, every specific part of the city knows what to do. At every wall, they have the strategy with their main KPIs for the public offices, and everyone knows what they're looking for, what they're looking up to. Everyone knows what they're aiming for. are. Those are the strategical decisions, the strategical resolutions, and very local issues. For example, this story is still relevant for them, but we're still researching it. In California, the electric scooters are really popular. They're really popular. Those are the car sharing services. Even Uber provides these services. You just rent out the scooters and you can just easily go to any place you want. There's a lot of this. So as the demand grows, then the problem also grows connected to the services. For example, there has to be additional rules, like, for example, the speed limits or the territory limitations of how you can use those electric scooters. In what rules they should also consider? Are there the bicycle either riders, or they should be treated as cars, as automated vehicles? So they've started to analyze it. The process is still in place, so I cannot tell you precisely what is the exact results that have already been gained. But the city has set out the task to analyze the data on the usage of the scooters, on the territories covered, on the speed. And this is the data that the businesses are ready to provide them, because there are businesses available for that. The commercial institutions that not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to do that kind of work because there's no legislation in place. But they're really easy to contact the people on that matters. They're interested in doing that. And I do believe that quite soon where they might publish, I don't know, maybe not a strategy, not a policy, but some kind of resolution on how to deal with those new services as electric scooters rent provided and how people can use it. So, okay. Tell us then, for the Ukrainian cities already, what is the experience of our American colleagues that can help Ukrainian cities in their everyday life? Well, first of all, this is using the data to increase your own productivity. The data should be used and the data should be processed effectively. So one of the projects that has been introduced in San Diego City Council is the automated data processing. It might be slightly easier for them because they publish around 100 data sets, and we are a smaller city, but we already publish a lot more data sets. And maybe because of the degree of the cabinet of ministers that we have, but the most important thing, they have this process automated. The person only starts to deal with this process when something goes wrong. There is a specially set service in place, but even there, they would like to be maximum efficiently. And to use the data effectively. To analyze the situation, to have the self-analysis in place, and also to analyzing the social problems that might appear in the city. Lviv. I have heard that the anti-corruptional strategies being introduced to Lviv, updated anti-corruptional strategies, but on data, what sets of data you are about to open, you're about to publish according to the strategy that you have? The case that we already recall today, the case on the mobile operators, I'm really pleased that we all remember those cases, even that the year has already passed. There was a lot of work, a lot of communication work, a lot of work analysis-wise, data analysis-wise, and we already had received a lot of data. We're analyzing the data, we're working on that. Then we would like to have our transport strategy updated. We're processing a lot of data to do that, and there's also going to be a lot of data that concern the migration inside of the city. And it's not only the question of transportation, it's a question of the social infrastructure also. And it's a question maybe that will sound banal, but we need to know how many people live in the city. We are all waiting for all of their residence registration until 2001. They all say that next year or this year there's plans to do that next year, but it still will have some of the mistakes in that. So our main technical assignment to the data collection was made in that way, so we will have quite good level of preciseness to tell how many people we actually have in the city. And this is going to be a very good basis to calculate many different indicators for us to understand what is the overall factual pressure or tension in the city. And I do believe that this big project is going to be completed in around 2 months, and we will have very interesting and unexpected results. And I do hope that we will even be able to call Lviv a city with 1 million inhabitants. And you've said an interesting point that American colleagues are analyzing data in order to have the well-informed decisions in place. Together in our innovation center, we have analyzed one of the community's data, and when we have asked them to provide the register of data, they've given us Google Maps, like for example. They do not understand what is the register of data set. And I recall another joke when the friends meet and one of them is asking, do you know how to play the piano? He said, like, no, I do not know. I haven't tried to do that, but I thought that I can. So we have to understand, why do we need the data? What is the next step with the using of the data? And what is the result of that? Having that said, I would like to give the floor to the person who makes the advertisement for the cities for free, who, free of charge, is making our anti-corruptional agenda. Please welcome Andriy Borovik, the Executive Director of Transparency International Ukraine. And the first question I would like to have to you was basically the question that is very relevant today. I usually hear it from the civil activists, like, take a look, the city is in the top position of the ratings, but we see corruption. So there is this ambiguity among the citizens when they see that the city is not being developed. But the Transparency International says that the city is developing, the city is transparent. Can you tell us how this happened, and can we think about it as inconsistency of some of the civil activists? Thank you very much. It's a very good question, because this is just the same form of critique that we usually hear according to our rate. Remember, we had already the transparency rate from 100 top cities of Ukraine, and every time when we do it, there are some of the civil activists, and sometimes they are doing very constructive criticism. But we said that we are measuring the transparency that has no limits, first of all. So we are measuring transparency in many different spheres, and measuring transparency that is basically the step number one to further on development. And you can only compare it to this moment when some of the officials tell you, but we publish this data, there's PDF published on the sites, but that's not in open data. But that's already the step one, and the person starts to understand it better further on. Speaking on the constructive criticism, you know, in Kiev we have more than 3 million of people, and everyone believes that their street is the first that has to be renovated. And if everyone is going to tell you that you're doing here the wrong way, but some other people will say that you're moving in the right direction. And in Ukraine, no one has spoken about it at all in the recent 20 years. So everything that has happened in the recent 3 and 5 years, it's a great jump into future. And you know, I'm listening to our colleagues on the panel and the representatives of the best cities in the rating. So this is important for us to speak. Why are we doing? What are we doing? And what are we achieving? And the results are very good. Thank you. Trying to use my right, I would like to say that you really helped to improve the situation with Drohobych city. When we have said that Transparency International told us about something as recommendations, our members of city councils, they're voting. Sometimes they just tell us that there's something that only you want, so we're not going to do that. So thank you for working with us. So you have made research whether transparency benefits the cities. Can you tell us about a couple of insights from this research? Yes, really, we had this research in place. We for 3 years already working on this topic, 2 years of rates. And, you know, we really need around 10 years of experience to have some really good relevant results. But we have some really obvious answers now. 3 findings and 3 ideas that were dealt with. First of all, publishing the information, it really helps you to manage your resources in a more efficient way. So all of the public offices in the city, they know that around 50% of the city budget, they're being formed out of the taxations that have been collected in the city. And 50 out of it is being collected from the state budget. But usually there's always a lack of budget. So very good results to improve the situation is to open the markets. Open market, and a lot of city has opened the market, is going to be obligatory for all of the city to use the Prozoro procurement system, and to rent out some of the real estate, to sell some of the object, and to have the real just price, and not that's the one the public officer has thought about because maybe their relative would like to make a kiosk there. Another point is investment. That's something that all of the mayors and all of the administrators understand. For example, we see that one of the members of the World Bank Group, they're really evaluating the effectiveness of financial resources management. They see how the budget is being formed, whether the information is open, and they provide a specific loan or credit rate for the city. And this credit rate that really presupposes whether your information is open and transparent. For example, the cities, they're usually allocating international loans, much cheaper loans from the international financial organizations to buy the public transport. For example, Mariupol, one of the cities that has the highest rating in our rating, they have allocated 12 million euro. Whether it's beneficial for the final recipient, for the final resident, yes. And the third example, we can use Drohobych here, for the informational requests for information. This is something that really surprised me. The number of the requests for information has dropped down to 11%. To 11% in 3 years. So there was a constant drop down. What does it mean? It means that administration has this free hands that can improve the life of the citizens in a different sphere, or I'm sorry for being the drought, or you can just fire those people and save some money not paying the salaries. But the question is as follows, that it really works to the small cities, less than 500,000 residents. The bigger cities, the more information you send, and the more requests you achieve. But in Drohobych, I know that it's not just you haven't just opened the information, you work with this information, and you're trying to simulate the demand, you're trying to declare your position. So, this field is really huge, and I'm not going to speak about investment and investment card of the cities. The more data you open, the more money the city receives. We try to find this correlation between the points we had in our rates and the direct investment that the city receives. Because the story of the data, open data, is not that long, but I would like to say that one of the data sets gives additional 200,000 investment. Maybe for Kyiv that's not a lot, but for small cities there's a lot of money and additional workplaces. So openness and transparency is definitely a key to success. Okay, how can the average citizens influence the government, influence the authority, so that would start to deal with the recommendation from Transparency International and Transparency Rate? I would say it's a two-way road. First of all, you need to find a leader in administration who would like to work with that. They definitely exist. We have found in 35 cities, we have found those leaders that we keep in contact with. But speaking about the residents themselves, they have to just we need to stimulate their interest. First of all, most of the time they don't know that they need this information, and they don't know that they can have this information in place. So we have trainings, workshops, presentations that explains why do you need this information, why it can be retrieved. So we're giving both the administration and residents how can you use it, in what way you can use it, and why it's going to be useful to you. I do believe that if 5 years ago someone would told you, why would I have a boat that will tell me where it's everything renovated? You can just renovate this hole that I have here in the roads. No. I am here updated, for example, for all of the newsletters, because I am a car driver and I need to follow where some problems, where some roads may be closed. 5 years ago, of course, I haven't thought that I'm going to be doing that, but now we have to develop ourselves and keep on being updated. Now we have the constructive dialogue, but there is a question whether this constructive dialogue or no. So I am always addressing all of the public officials in the cities. Please communicate with civil activists. If it's needed, if there's going to be some really harsh communications, you can invite some mediators like Transparency International, and you'll be successful and happy. I will just recall when we had informational request and we sent it by post. No one really processed it. So, someone has written a normal letter with signature, then this is okay. I don't know whether it has been worked the same in a different city, but it really worked in Drohobych like this. We have a couple of minutes left. We would like to have some questions from our audience, please. Alexander Ustymenko, I have a question to Olena. And you said that in the United States, in every city and on the state level, there are separate open data portals. But can you have a piece of advice for the cities that they would like to publish data? Is there a sense for them to have their own city portals of open data, or they can just use, for example, the Unified National Open Data Portal? What are the pros and cons to have your own portal for the open data? And another point, we have spoken about using the data of the mobile operators. What are the conditions you're doing it? I understand that it's a prepaid, fee-based service because it's about the salaries, so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. So about the local versus national portals, well, this is a very long discussion going on, and with the development of this sphere, we've got already to this or that extent a certain solution. First of all, from the point of view of the owner, administrator of the local portal, you need to be ready that it's not that easy. In any case, it will be lots of expenditures and expenses and resources and funds and human resources as well, and you need to be ready for that. Thanks to the processing of the national portal, it's not compulsory. It's more than enough to publish the datasets at the national portal, and the local portal, let us be frank and sincere, in fact, first of all, is your own PR. That you've got your own portal. Taking into account the development of this sphere in our place, if you've got a local portal, you need to be technically ready to give out those sets to the national level. As far as I know, the plans, the following plans, which we are waiting for about the friendship between the national and the local portals, there are certain solutions from the state agency about the typical solution of the local portal. So I would advise you to wait a bit and then to take a decision more substantially on basing upon the different factors which will be mentioned by the agency or the ministry. I cannot get used that we have a ministry now. But still, anyway, you need to acknowledge that you need to support it on a permanent basis. It's a constant work, a constant internal work, because it is on our own servers, or those are permanent expenses for other different servers which will be maintained by other people. Unfortunately, you cannot find free solutions in this case, and if someone is promising you that it will be for free, there will be some time, what Stanislav said, that this car will need it to be maintained. And it's the right thing, because it cannot be in a different way. As for the cell phone operators, we've got some activities with them. The last case last year was, according to the memorandum, was totally for free, and we did not pay anything for that. And now our appetites grew, and the terms of reference was created in a complicated way, so it needs financial expenses as well. But the cell phone operators, in my opinion, are ready to meet our requirements. For them, it is rather profitable, potentially profitable from the point of view of cooperation with the city, from their own PR, the social responsibility. They are ready to communicate, they are ready to interact, not on the only of the commercial basis. Everything can be debated. It's not just some crazy sums of money. So we need to use that. Thank you. Okay, any other question? Would you please give the mic? Hello, my name is Natalia Chernogub, company of U-Control. This is the system of online checks of counter agents and business partners. I was incredibly happy to listen to your discussion, especially you, Stanislav. You were such a moderator, and you collected the cities which were considered the most transparent. We are conducting trainings for the mayor's office, and very often they ask us, how can we analyze the registers, the open data, and how can it help help to find out corruption and to prevent some of the corruption risks. So, for your cities, maybe you don't even have to explain anything because you're using that rather actively. You explain your local councils, all of that. How do you plan to scale your wonderful cases and experience, and how can we as a community of open data can help the cities become more transparent, to decrease the level of corruption, and for the city residents to use open data more and more? It seems to me you just need to sign a memorandum with Transparency International Ukraine and to say that one of the conditions is the training. Well, if I'm not mistaken, we have it already. We've got a couple of minutes left. One more question. Hello, my name is Alexander. I'm from Kyiv, and we're also constructing and giving out open data, but I'm interested in two questions. I don't know whom I should ask, but I'll ask those two questions, and if you've got more expertise, would you please answer? For instance, if we have the huge amount of open data for each year, is it reasonable to construct a certain forecast which will be useful for the business? And the second question, is it reasonable to sell these data? I mean for forecast, not just the open data, but forecast data. Who can answer that? Well, I think that Ucontrol can answer, not us. Well, it's not fair. Well, I can try. First of all, the forecast data is a rather ungrateful thing. Forecasts can be optimistic or pessimistic or realistic, and it's not a fact that they will come true. In fact, this is the question whether you have the need to create these forecasts, the analysis, or maybe you just need to give out the data and you will find the enthusiasts who will do that instead of you, who will find the way. They will find the opportunity to do all of that and to add the value, including to you. But as for the sales, we have the central authorities which are selling the data, but still what they sell is kind of a level up. That is, I'd say, they are not aggregated, very raw data, which can be processed later. The same statistics, you get it for free, all the aggregated information about the population, but if you want to have it really detailed and they got it, they can sell it, because they also have to survive somehow. So it depends on which data you're speaking about. So it's not that easy to speak in a wholesome manner. I can mention an example. I read an info when McDonald's is constructing any shop of theirs, they are researching beforehand whether there are any flows of people, whether it's profitable or not, and maybe they pay someone for that. I'm interested in that model. The availability of data and about the investments into the city is very important. So how can we earn on that? Well, if you speak about the people flows, the cell phone operators are earning on that, but this is the commercial institution, so they are free to claim payment for their services. As for the movement of the people, for instance, the city service can generate these kind of data. Unfortunately, I don't know about any of that. If you've got such a service, yes, we've got such a service. You just need to research the market, whether these data is needed if you want to sell it, because you have the economic activities, but you need to research the market. I will name an example. For now, Kyiv City has the e-ticket, and in fact we know the flows. Well, maybe not enough so far, because the blue card is not that popular, but when it is in Kyiv, those will be millions of people, and those are huge flows of data. So you will have some cooperation with the security service for the people, because partly this is private data, so you need to balance and to depersonify this data. If I'm not mistaken, we have the coffee break and you can communicate and train there. No questions left, right? Out of the experience of Drogobych, I'd like to give you an advice. If you're a small town, and if you don't have the development of open data in your community, and you think what to start with, the first thing is the most important. Take the constructive activists of the people who will define your agenda. Because the published data by the city, if the city itself defines what's important in me, it will lead to the situation when you ask how much spoonfuls of sugar you want in the tea, 2 or 3, and the answer is I'd like 1 spoonful of sugar, but I'd like to see that. So in the end, I'd like to wish you to develop the data, because this is not that easy to have this burden. And everybody is thinking, who needs that? But in fact, the end user needs that when you create the services. Don't only open the data, but find the opportunities to implement new services for people to see it's necessary, it's important, and you do something useful for your city. And also you need to remember that this is the end user and he or she is somewhere there, but we ourselves can be the consumers of these data, which our own needs we can satisfy and how we can simplify our lives. If it eases our lives and solves some of the managerial issues, it will as well solve some of the problems of the citizens and residents. And my short conclusion, you know, for 5 years about the slogan, everybody sees everything about the public procurement, so let us do everything sees everything, everybody sees everything in the cities as well. Let us give a round of applause to our panelists.